Level 3.
All right. We'll now call the city council regular meeting to order for July 25th, 6 p.m. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. The invocation will be given by Deputy Mayor Jim Bernard.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for being with us today and thank you for your love. We ask you for your guidance and direction as we go about doing the business of City of Avon Park. And we ask that you'll make sure that it's your will that we perform tonight. We want to thank all those that are here tonight. Ask God to bless them and to be with all of us and keep us well and keep us healthy. And we do this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember McGuire. Here. Councilmember Taylor. Here. Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item number 4. This will be the minutes from July the 11th, 2022 for the city council regular meeting and the minutes from July 11th city council special meeting. Be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes, July 11, 2022 for city council regular meeting, as well as the same date for the special meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or changes? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Up next, we have the first reading of ordinance 13-2022.
It's an ordinance, City of Avon Park, Florida, amending the Avon Park Unified Land Development Code, adding business owners within the City of Avon Park is eligible to serve on the Planning and Zoning Board. Specifically amending Article 8, Section 8.03.01, Planning and Zoning Board, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for effective date.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for the ordinance?
I'll make a motion that we approve item D5, ordinance number 13-2022, text amendment to the city's land development code.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, please.
We have a motion and a second. Questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Resolution number 2022-01.
It's a resolution in the City of Avon Park, Florida, granting special exception approval to establish a group home facility for the purpose of serving homeless persons on property zone R1A, single-family residential located at 303 and 309 East Washington Street and 923 South Carolina Avenue, Avon Park, Florida.
Okay. Dana, do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Dana Riddell, Senior Planner for the record with Central Florida Regional Planning Council. We provide technical assistance to the City of Avon Park for planning and zoning items. Do we want to go ahead and, yes, there we go. Thank you. Okay. So as mentioned, this is in regard to resolution 2022-01. And the owners of the property are the Apostolic Church of Jesus Incorporated. The applicant is Dr. Bobby Smith Powell, who is here today. And it's located at 923 South Carolina Avenue and 303 and 309 East Washington Street. The applicant is requesting a special exception to allow a group home facility for the purpose of serving homeless persons. The existing future land use is low density residential, and all 3 parcels combined make up a total of 0.39 acres. The zoning is R1A, low density residential. And up on the screen, we have some images of the home. A couple things I want to clarify. So going back to this picture of the home, this is a single family residence. It has 4 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room. And the property appraiser's website for some reason has it listed as a multifamily dwelling, but it is indeed one single family dwelling. And the applicant is here. She'll be able to present a little bit more about her intended use and how the rooms will be used. But I wanted to clarify that. And then there's this parking to the west of the actual home. And it's currently used by the church. It's church-owned property. And you can see on this site plan, there's parking interior and exterior. It's kind of configured in a way where you can pull out onto the street, but they also have a large circular driveway where, from my understanding, most of the cars that service the facility actually park in the circular drive, but there's just additional parking if necessary.
Mhm.
So, as you all know, special exceptions usually don't come before city council, but due to the nature of the request, we brought it to planning and zoning, and we also are bringing it to you tonight for a final decision. There are conditions of approval for your consideration. Additional conditions can be added, or if any of these conditions are not to your liking or approval, you can ask for them to be stricken. The first condition will be that the site shall only be used to serve housing needs for homeless persons on a temporary basis. Any additional uses or establishment of services on the site will require additional review and approval through the city's special exception process. So that's in reference to the fact that there's different programs that can be facilitated when housing homeless or other citizens, but basically it's just to make sure that a business isn't really being run from the establishment, that it is being used as a group home. And we use the term group home because in the city's land development regulations, we don't actually have a term specific to homeless shelters. So anytime we're reviewing something, we have to categorize it in the closest, most similar category. So we recognize that this is very similar to how a group home would be operated. And so it should be operated as such. The second condition would be the maximum number of residents shall not exceed 15 persons. Number 3 is that check-in hours for overnight stays shall only occur between the hours of 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. Number 4 is all outdoor activities shall be limited to the hours between 1/2 hour before sunrise and 1/2 hour after sunset. That's consistent with other regulations in our code for group homes. Outdoor activities shall be limited to the fenced and screened side yard and rear areas, which is something that the applicant has offered in addition to the regular regulations that we find in our LDRs. And number 5 would be that the sides and rear of the property shall remain fenced at all times. Number 6 is consumption of alcoholic beverages shall not be permitted on premise. And number 7 is the facility shall be monitored by a 24-hour surveillance. Number 8 is disclosure of criminal history shall be required as part of the application process for all persons utilizing the facility. And number 9, the facility shall be required to maintain a written record of all persons who utilize the services at the facility. Number 10, the facility will comply with all requirements established by the Avon Park Fire Department. And number 11, a minimum of 1 employee will be on site at all times. So that's actually 11 conditions. I don't know if I said 10 earlier, but we have 11. Past action. On March 8th, the Planning and Zoning Board, they made a motion to recommend approval of the proposed special exception, but the motion died because it was 3-3, and there was no follow-up motion to recommend approval or denial or anything like that. So it's just kind of hanging in limbo.
Yeah, so that would actually be a denial. If the no's would have it in that situation. So it's a little bit misleading on the Planning and Zoning Board action. So whenever it says on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022, explains what you just said. It says that the Planning and Zoning Board voted 3-3 to forward the proposed special exception to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. That's misleading because that motion actually failed. So it wouldn't be coming to us with a recommendation of approval.
Correct.
Just want the record to reflect that. Having said that, is there any immediate questions for Dana? Okay, so the applicant is here. If she would like to come up and speak. Just give your name and address for the record and tell us about your facility.
Yes, Dr. Bobby Smith Powell. My address is 1418 Penny Avenue, Sebring, Florida. I'm the Executive Director of Head Hearts and Hands of Heartland Incorporated. We've been providing services for the county through this organization for the past 2.5 years. Prior to that, from 2000 on, we were providing services under a church name, the Living Body of Christ in Sebring, where we were stationed. But when we started out, we were distributing food, and we distribute food to everyone in the county. At the Sebring site, we have a drive-through location. In Avon Park, we have distributed right there beside the Castle Restaurant. We've also distributed up on Main Street beside the boot. It's a boot shop up there and a parking lot there where there was a door store there. We distributed there in that location also. So since 2015, we've been serving all of the residents of Highlands County. We don't just, and we still serve and distribute food. We've distributed over 2 million pounds of food in the last 2 years. And throughout the COVID, and not only food, we've also provided sanitation products, masks. We also have a shower house, a portable shower house, a portable clothing closet. So we do many of the different services that are needed for homeless people. And it was great because initially we were mainly in feeding and street outreach. And then we applied for a grant through the Homeless Coalition. And when we applied for that grant through the Homeless Coalition, we were able to open the doors of the first HUD-funded shelter in Highlands County. That grant has now ended, and it was going to run through January of 2022. So the facility closed in February of 2022. But that grant was specifically for people that were affected by COVID, which is a little different from what we would like to use the facility for if we are granted the special exception. We would like to focus more on homeless families. I've distributed a little small handout here in the flyers, the PowerPoint flyers here on pages, it's 2 pages back and front. And it just talks about the current Highlands County sheltering we have in the different areas where we're able to shelter people. Number 1, we have a domestic violence shelter, and that's located in Sebring. And number 2, we have a reentry program upon release from jail. And on occasion, don't quote me on if they're getting out of prison, but I know from jail, and that's done through the Highlands County Sheriff Department. And number 3, we have a residential drug and alcohol rehab program in Sebring, newly opened, called Banyan of Sebring. It was for adolescents. And we also have the Hogar Racer in Avon Park, and we have the Tri-County located out at South Florida State College. Next, we have a homeless pregnant teens from the Potter's House located in Lake Placid. The reason I'm giving this information is because I'm just sharing that there are different types of shelter available for our homeless population in our county. But the gap that we have that does not have housing is our families, where we have children. And I work closely with the homeless person from the school board. She calls often, quite often, even needing services at the shelter, but we were unable to help her because that funding was specifically for COVID affected people. And I could not place a family into the shelter because of that, because of those specifics. On the next page, on the handout, I have the statistics from Highlands County for 2022. I was just informed by Ms. Gray that the count for Highlands County, the total count is wrong, is higher than that. They had to do a correction to the count, and I did not check with her to see if there was a corrected amount, but she just told me it was well over 1,000 for Highlands County. At the time, initially, when I received an email, it was like 576, and then the households counted in that was 144, so I'm sure that count is different also. saying if you needed to get a more accurate count of the total number of homeless. And this is homeless with at least one child in the house. Then also I have the total there from May the 16th, 2022, on the total amount of homeless children we have in our county this past school year. It was 455 homeless children. And I got calls all through the night where kids were sleeping in cars with their parents. Kids are sleeping in the groves with their parents. Not all of them are unsheltered, but many of them are because they lose their homes for one reason or another. I'm not talking about a chronic population now. I'm talking about somebody that just ran across an economic situation and they were evicted and they needed somewhere to go and they have children and they don't have anywhere to go. So since that is the gap, this is the population that I'm really wanting to work with because many people have said, you know, you want a neighborhood safe, you want to keep it safe. And I agree with that. Even when we had the shelter before, we would call the sheriff department and make a call to find out before someone was admitted whether or not we should have some concerns. And we were given the information. We were told, I don't think you have any concerns with that person.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Does the council have any questions for Dr. Powell?
I have a couple questions. Did you have people at this residence living there last year?
Yes.
People?
Yes.
Did you get authorization or approval for them to do that for your permit or whatever?
Well, I went in and I talked with the city manager and we had a meeting with the Central Florida Planning at that time because there wasn't a category for a shelter. There wasn't an ordinance for a shelter and it was zoned residential. In that meeting, it was discussed that as long as I keep it residential and not do business, not bring in business at that site, we didn't foresee or think that there would be any problems at that time.
But did you have problems with any neighbors' complaints at that time?
Well, later I did get a complaint from code enforcement. And one of the complaints was that there was loud music coming from the place. And it was difficult for a neighbor to sleep because of the loud music. Well, unfortunately, the loudest thing we had in the shelter to play music would have been a cell phone. And no one's cell phone would be heard outside of that facility because you can't, even with all the doors and the windows closed, you can't hear outside and all the windows are always down.
Sure.
And I did investigate myself and find out where the music was coming from. It wasn't coming from the shelter and that is not new to that area. Matter of fact, I was informed today that police have been called due to loud music in that neighborhood. And it's a known residence there that plays the loud music. The second complaint was that neighbor's wife, same neighbor's wife, was cursed out by someone from the facility. Well, I did question everyone at the facility and no one, of course, is going to admit it that they did it. But I did explain to them that if that ever happens with a tenant there, they would immediately be asked to relocate and try to find somewhere else to stay. But with some investigating from that, we found out that there were kids that were frequenting in between the building straight up on Washington, and they are local residents, kids from the neighborhood. And the church itself had to put up lights because these kids were kind of making statements and saying things that they shouldn't have been said. Those were the two complaints that I received. Another complaint was from Mr. Snell. He said that he wished that he had been informed before. But what I did do was, after opening, I did go and take my card, knock on the door to every resident on that street, except the one resident there that had dogs there. I was a little fearful about going there because I've seen dogs jump,
Sure.
vicious dogs jump over fences. But I did go leave my contact card so that if I needed to, if there were any problems come up or any situation, I could be contacted.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Powell?
I have a couple more. I see you have a bunch of contacts where you send out letters to people. How many of those responses were those that lived actually on Washington Street?
Well, on Washington Street, I'd have to get the actual papers to count them up. But on Washington Street, we did have two no's, and one of the no's is from the residents where we had the complaints. And the other resident was a young lady signed an affidavit, and I haven't read the affidavit, but I had heard prior to her signing the affidavit that she had another reason, but that reason changed. So I haven't read the affidavit, so I don't know exactly what it says. But to my knowledge, only two people see it, no, and I'm not saying that we got a response back from everybody, but we did knock on doors, and out of the doors that we knocked on, we had 28 owners to say yes. We had 4 owners that said they were neutral, and this was in a 200 to 300 feet radius that we visited. And then we had, we counted 4 owners that's saying no, because I counted the 2 owners that were here at the last meeting, and I counted the one that did the affidavit and 1 new person that we had. So we had 4 no's, 28 yeses, 4 neutrals, 4 no's, which gave us a total, I guess if you counted the yeses and the neutrals up, that would be 32. And then we mailed out 24 responses. We didn't get any 24 sheets. We didn't get any response. So what we did, we went and knocked on doors at those 24. That's what we set out to do. We had 11 tenants that were residing in those residents from the 24, where owners didn't respond. That said, 11 tenants said yes, and 9 were vacant, and about 1 was a lot that they were building on. 3 of them, I think, were vacant lots that didn't have anything on. And I put some numbers there to the bottom showing that if we had the owners, yes, the neutral and the no response, that would be a total of 56. If we had the owners, yes, the neutral and the tenants, yes, that would be a total of 43, yes. And if we had the owners opposing, total 4 with non-responding, even adding the non-responding with a total 4 opposing, we would have 28 opposing. And the reason I did that was because I was given a reason that the residents did not want it. And when I was told that, I said, well, the only way I can verify that is to actually do this petition that we did, or and go door to door and see what the response was. And I was amazed, because had it been reversed, I would not be here tonight.
Okay.
Do you have any comment on this response from a lady that lives on Washington Street?
I haven't seen it.
What's the name? Jim?
Can I
Connie
see it?
T. Williams?
Can I can respond to that, Jim, if I can.
Sure.
I had the opportunity to help Dr. Powell out going knocking on doors. I participated in this petition because I thought it was a great idea. I personally know people that is living on their parents' lanai right now. And if you ride in certain areas of the town, you can see them. You don't have to look very hard. So when she came and asked me, would I help out? You know what I told her? I know this neighborhood better than you do. I grew up here. I know them. So I went to knock on the doors. And to answer your question, Jim, about Washington Street, how many said no on Washington Street? I had 2 to say no. One of them was Miss Connie Williams. And I had Mr. Uke. I'm not sure what Mr. Uke's last name is. He said no. Mr. Uke has the brand new home next to the center.
Okay.
And Miss Connie Williams said no. And Gerald, you all know Gerald, he said he's gonna save his for later, but he never gave me a yes or no. And everybody else on that street said yes.
Okay.
Gerald, that you're talking about, did contact me and told me that he was a no, so that's 3. So my last question for you tonight, first of all, I want to commend you on what you're trying to do here, because I think that homeless condition definitely needs to get some help, and I appreciate the fact what you're trying to do in the city as well as in the county. And I congratulate you on all that instances. But the last question I would have for you is, why would you pick a street that's not qualified in the land use development already. Why wouldn't you find someplace that's already qualified to move people in there that's designed to do that by this code, land use ordinance code?
Well, I've looked all over the county, up and down, and I looked everywhere, and it was initially when I looked at it, it did say multifamily. And when I got, when we met at the meeting, that's when I found out that that multifamily was not multifamily. It's designed, that building is just, it has 4 bedrooms in there. It has 4 bathrooms in there. The bathrooms are inside of each bedroom, which gives it privacy. That's one of the reasons, because I couldn't find a place. It's hard to find a place, and there isn't an ordinance. And even in Sebring, there is an ordinance in Sebring, but the problem is finding a building. It's very, very difficult. I've even been to the conference on Florida Homeless Conference. I have another conference to go to next month, because they don't have grant money for acquisition. There's grant funding to help if there's an existing place, but they don't want, so far, I haven't found money for acquisition.
I have a question about the grant funding acquisition. Who did you get the funding from?
I got the funding from Homeless Coalition.
Okay, they didn't require for you to have paperwork already in place, showing that this was an allowable use prior to granting you the funds?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I had already gotten it. The grant was approved. I hadn't signed the contract, but the grant was approved prior to me actually getting that location secured. And Ms. Gray did ask me, have you spoken with the city? Have you talked with those people? And yes, I did talk with them, and I met with them. And we thought, I guess, because it was residential, in that meeting that we had, we thought that everything was okay. I mean, the city manager is here, and the 2 people from Central Florida.
Do you recall that
Planning
meeting
Council.
and how that went?
I do. First time I met with Dr. Powell, she was going to open a homeless shelter, and I told her that homeless shelter may not go over in a residential area. And then she got back to me, well, she told me it wasn't going to be a homeless shelter, it was going to be something else. So it's, I'm with Jim, I applaud her for wanting to help people, but what she's going to open up has changed 3 or 4 times with us. And to answer the deputy mayor's question, which she did, but not directly, yes, she opened up without approval. We found out, we were on a telephone call, myself, Randy for code enforcement, and Jeff Schmucker, when we found out she was actually open. And then we told her she couldn't be open, and she decided to close it. And Randy followed up on that when the people moved out of there. And we did have it, one of the meeting where the P&Z voted, there were several people say there was several people wandering around that had problems with it. But does that answer your question?
Yes.
And if I can also contribute to that portion of the conversation. Dr. Bobby Smith Powell did also receive something from the Regional Planning Council where I think there was a bit of a miscommunication where it was misleading in a way where she would have received it to believe that she could have opened up a homeless shelter. I think the exact wording was, if the home is used as a house, then it can be used to house homeless persons, because we can't
A single family house.
right.
You just can't have
We
multiple
did-
families there.
I don't know if we specifically went into multifamily or single family or what exactly the language in that email was, but it was basically saying operate it like a home and you're good to go.
Mhm.
But, and I think that's where some of the confusion came in.
Sure. Okay. We have quite a few people that want to speak to this, so
Can I ask her just one more question before
Yeah,
you
go
do
ahead.
that? You mentioned in your handout that it's for families with children. Is that the only individuals that will be living there?
At this time, that is what we would like to serve on. Yes, families with children.
So they have to have a child to be able to stay there?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because we have facilities for other types of homeless situations.
Okay, and will there be mixed families in one single room?
Well, I guess it depends upon the capacity and the size of the family. Say if a family came in and there was one mother and one child and another mother and another child, the rooms are actually huge rooms. And it would be big enough to have, 2 bunk beds in there. It would be large enough to have those 2 families in there. But like if some family comes in with 4 or 5 people in a family, then they would have that one room.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Ms. Power, you good? We have a few people that want to speak. Okay, thank you. We have Donald Simmons. Please give your name and address for the record, please.
Donald Simmons, 303 East Hal McRae Boulevard.
Yes, sir.
And I have a few questions. Is the FBR still in effect with the city?
If, could you repeat that, please?
The FBR, is it still in effect with the city?
What's the FBR?
I'm wondering how did this pass code enforcement? Because of the zoning. Or how did it get to you guys? And are you guys superseding code enforcement? I'm wondering how did it get to where it is?
Yeah, so this is a zoning issue, not necessarily a code enforcement. Code enforcement will be there to enforce the zoning. So it's gone before the zoning board in an attempt for an special exemption. That attempt has failed. However, it did come to the city council. So now if the city council was to approve it, then it would be up to the code enforcement to make sure that they're following the rules that are approved.
Okay. So prior to going to them, it comes to you guys. I mean, it comes to the city council.
Correct, which is, it's here now before us now.
Okay. Again, I'm Donald Simmons, and it was not somebody else. It was my wife that was talked bad down to in a situation when Ms. Powell was talking, and she said that it was somebody else. The person that talked to my wife, that talked down to her, was living in that facility at that particular time.
I see.
And then besides that, it is, I like that somebody to feel a question. Is there anyone that's associated with this facility, period, live within 1,000 feet of, what's the address again? 303?
309.
309 East Washington Street?
Mhm.
Anybody that has anything to do with that, do they live within 1,000 feet of a homeless shelter? Nobody. I live there.
Yep.
That's where my home is. I don't stay there, I live. And I just want to make those comments. And like I said, I was wondering how did it get here without, code enforcement, doing, and that's because of the zoning. Without
Sure.
special zoning,
Yeah, so originally it opened and it was not in the proper zoning, but therefore code enforcement got involved. They had voluntarily shut down. Then they asked for the special exemption, which is what they would have had to do to get the zoning proper. They've gone through that process. It's gone to the zoning board and now it's before the city council for a final approval or disapproval.
the FDR Florida Development Regulations. Am I saying that right? Did I
Oh, I think you're referring to the LDRs, Land Development
Land
Regulation.
Development Regulations. I apologize. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. That's what I was referring to when I was talking about, who approved, how
Right.
did it get?
This process is to remedy the issue that is currently against the LDRs. So this is their attempt to fix that.
Okay,
Right now, it's illegal. In order for it to be legal, it has to be approved by the council.
There you go.
okay.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question for Mr. Simmons, sir. Excuse me, Donald. here.
Up here
Oh,
in
I'm
the front.
sorry.
There you
Yes.
go.
You said you lived in the area there yourself. So do you have any other comments that you heard from your neighbors about this issue?
Yes, the comments that I heard, I heard negative comments. And I did get a letter from Powell, but I got it today. It just came today. If somebody was to my house, I don't know. I'm very, very rarely gone home. So nobody knocked on my door that I'm aware of. I can't say they didn't, but I'm not aware of anyone knocking on my door
Sure.
and saying anything to me about this. I just happened to get the letter from the city is how I realized that this was happening tonight. And that's why I'm here.
Okay.
Like I
Okay.
said, I did get a letter from you guys and I got it today. Came in the mail today.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you,
other
sir.
questions for Mr. Simmons?
I do. Mr. Simmons, you don't remember me knocking on your door and talking to you and your wife about this issue?
No, we talked about this. This was prior, I apologize for this. This was prior to the, what you're talking about when I talked to you.
We talked about two different issues and this was one of them.
That was prior to.
Your wife explained to me about the guys making the comments to her.
Right.
Right.
But what I
So,
want you to remember is, this is prior to the last meeting when it got turned down.
no, you just said no one ever knocked on your door and talked to you about this.
No. This what you're talking about. You talked to me,
Yes, sir.
asked me some questions.
Yes, sir.
This is prior
Okay,
to the last meeting before when it was turned down.
okay,
So I'm talking about since then.
Okay.
okay.
And
You absolutely right. You absolutely right.
Thank
You're right.
Okay. Any other questions for Mrs. Simmons? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
no
Appreciate
problem.
your time. So a hand up in the back? Yes, ma'am. You know how it works.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all
Yes,
for
ma'am.
allowing me here. Brenda Gray, 752 US Highway 27 North, Avon Park. I am the Executive Director for Heartland Coalition for the Homeless.
Mhm.
And in answer to Councilmember McGuire's question why I raised my hand was that the organization, the Heartland Coalition for the Homeless, who initially partnered, who had HHH, Bobby Powers, nonprofit organization as a subcontractor for a grant. One of the avenues in the grant was a temporary emergency shelter for COVID affected people. And the rule is in the grant, it said that you must follow all local, state, federal guidelines in order to operate whatever facility you want to operate.
Mhm.
I did not go behind Ms. Powell and check because I just took for granted that the agency was going to follow all of the rules to include the city manager's checklist for opening up any facility or business within the city limits of Avon Park.
Did you ask them specifically about any zoning?
No, I did not. No, I don't, and I don't monitor subcontractors that closely, and I will from here on. But when I got the information from the city manager that the facility was opening and without the proper authorization is when I got concerned.
Mhm.
And then when I went to Ms. Power and spoke to her about that, she went around and around and told me some things and then some things. And I went to Central Florida Regional Planning Zoning, and then I went to the fire department, the code enforcement, and no one could tell me that she had the proper authorization to open up the facility. That's one of the reasons why Heartland Coalition for the Homeless pulled out from that facility.
So were the
And doing
grant
it.
funds awarded or no?
They were awarded, yes.
Were they
but-
taken back after you
No,
realized it didn't-
no. The way the grant funds worked is that there's different avenues, we call them line items, like homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, street outreach, emergency shelter.
Mhm.
And what I did was move the funds from that emergency shelter line to homeless prevention and rapid rehab, and I spent all the money, over $1.4 million. So the service was provided for the time that it was there, with unknowingly by Heartland Coalition for the Homeless, that the facility was not operating within the guidelines of all the rules and regulations.
I see.
Okay?
How many homeless facilities do you guys partner with in Avon Park?
And Avon Park, 1, 2, 3, there is not homeless facilities, there are subcontractors. We subcontracted.
That service the homeless
Yes,
or
that
however.
serve homeless, church services, Hands for Homeless, Jane Berlinger Agency, Southside Community Resource Center, the Domestic Violence Center. We partner with all of the facilities, even all the food pantries and everything. And except for Hogar Racer, we haven't gotten a partnership with them yet.
Is that by choice or just not?
No, I've reached out to them, but if they don't, rub my hand, I kind of like take it back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to answer Councilman McGuire's question.
Any other questions for Ms. Gray? Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have some more questions for Dr. Powell, if I may.
Sure. Let's see if anybody else wants to speak first. Does anybody else want to speak to this issue? Seeing none, Ms. Powell.
You got
Oh,
one.
I see one. Please give your name and address for the record, sir.
All right, my name is Neville Watt, and I live on 310 Booker Street. Thanks, sir. I'm the closest house to that building. I got one house over there,
Okay.
and I live in the next one. It's a curator might not want to move, but I can't visit the house. So I really don't want that thing from right there. You know, if I got 13 granddaughter and I got 10 grandboy, and I want when they get to the play, they ain't playing nobody property. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Powell, would you please come up again? Just for the record, please give your name and address again.
Yes, Bobby Smith Powell, 1418 Penny Avenue, Sebring, Florida.
Dr. Powell, what were some of the things that you were not in compliance with?
As far as I know, it's not like I just went and opened up this facility against and totally disregarding any ordinances. I did not do that. I would not do that. That is not how I just wouldn't do that. And for it to be reflected in any way that I would just totally disregard the procedures, that's not my manner and way of doing things, because I have, even in my regular employment for many years, I was a procedural person. I was a staffing specialist, and I had to make sure procedures were followed. So like, I did go to the city manager and I did meet with the Central Florida Planning. And if it's to say that maybe I interpreted that letter wrong, but it said that as long as it was being used for residential purposes and I could not do any of the other services that I was providing, and I had to have a different location for those services, which I did on Delaney Heights. I leased a building there on Delaney Heights to do all of the other type of services. Like when you get a person comes in and they're homeless, then there were other grants where you could rehouse them. So that all of that work had to be done on Delaney. None of that could be done at the actual residence there on Washington. And I did not do any of that at that residence on Washington. It was strictly used for residential purposes. Okay. So if there's, and I wanted to say that, but I'm glad you asked the
Did
question.
that answer your question?
Not really.
Oh, I'm sure the code enforcement officer could
I had
answer you.
spoke to her before, and I think one was something had to do with the fire alarm, and one
Yep.
had to do with go around. to
Why don't we have
different
Mr. LaBelle
residents.
answer all the things that were deficient?
This basically, I know code enforcement's been mentioned a lot. This started out with conversations with myself and Ms. Powell. It was perfectly clear and made perfectly clear that this would be treated as a special exception, and that special exception application would have to be filled out and then the fee paid and forwarded. Very clear. That special exception application sat in code enforcement for a good 2 months without being picked up. I only knew that she opened up because I got a call from the city manager basically getting a flyer or a brochure with a ribbon cutting celebration. So it was at that point that we realized that the procedure was circumvented and the opening was taking place without with a violation of land code. It's under the, you can't do that under land code. It's not under muni code, but under our land code, it's not allowed. I was not privy to the conversations with the city manager or with CFRPC, but that was my personal. And then she was cited. I did personally cite her for the land code violation. She was very amenable. She did close the doors as she promised she would. And then we went to the planning and zoning board, and you know about that. And now here we are today.
Okay, so as far as the city relates, and as far as this meeting is concerned, which is dealing with the zoning, that is what the answer to your question is. So there the rest of the stuff with fires, alarms, stuff like that, that's not what spurred this. That's not really taken into account in this meeting. We're strictly talking about the zoning aspect.
Okay. Well, when the special exceptions, when those conditions and all came up, I did close down, and I did have the fire inspector come. He did say initially when he went around and around as to saying what we were gonna do, because first he was saying you don't need a sprinkler system, you do need a sprinkler system. I gotta find out, I gotta check. And that was in February when he was coming first. He said get extinguishers. I
Sure.
bought fire extinguishers.
I'm just simply saying that's a separate issue
wasn't-
entirely.
Okay,
Tonight, we're
so-
strictly talking about the zoning.
Okay, so it
If
wasn't
we can't get past the zoning, then the rest of it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
So, any other
Okay.
questions? Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. So, in summary, it basically comes down to what the council wants to do. We can make a motion to approve, we can make a motion to approve with changes, or we can make a motion to deny, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, personally, given the history of this, I'm not in favor of opening this facility. We've heard from the immediate neighbors. It's not something that they are wanting. So I certainly wouldn't be in favor of it.
Mayor, can I ask you a question? You
Yes,
said you
ma'am.
heard from the immediate neighbors?
The two neighbors that spoke tonight.
Right, we're talking 2 out of how many?
I think there's only
I
11
mean,
on
shouldn't we
that
not take that in
I think there's
consideration?
only 11 on that street. So if there's 3 out of the 11,
Right.
So what
No,
you're
I-
saying is that you were
I'm sorry.
listening to their statement that they felt like it was not appropriate for that neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and given the history of it already had opened without the proper authorization. It is in a single family zone. This is by no means a single family type of use. In my opinion, it's multifamily or more. So it doesn't fit, plain and simple.
I don't see it as plain and simple. You looking at one street, Washington Street.
Yeah,
There's
But ma'am,
4 or 5
that's
streets that was
just
involved in
your
this.
opinion. You've given your opinion. I've
So
given
I
my
guess
opinion.
what I'm asking there is that we going on one street with what 3 people say on one street, and there was 5, 6 streets that was doors knocked on. We got more opinion, just not from just Washington Street. Opinions it came from Washington Street, Hal McRae, Carolina, Green Street, Booker Street. It wasn't just those 3 residents on Washington Street.
Yep.
I'm talking about the complete street.
Mr. Simmons lives on Hal McRae.
He does.
There's at least 2 streets.
And
But in either regard, it's irrelevant. The point is that your opinion is obviously that you are in favor of it. My opinion is that I'm not in favor of it. So it's neither here nor there. You can have your opinion. You're entitled to it. I'm entitled to mine. So let's move on. So I'm interested to hear what the rest of the council has to say.
my concern is there seems to be, I feel like Miss Bobby had the perfect opportunity with Miss Gray, who has sat up here for years and years and years, to go to her and ask her for her help on this type of a situation. If anybody's going to know the rules of how things go, it would be her, but just because she's served in that capacity. So I really wish she would have. I don't know if she was not forthcoming with you guys when she applied for these grant funds, but it's kind of concerning that you said you spent over $1 million on these funds, and it would be nice to know that they were spent in a way that's going to be the most beneficial to people. The other concern I have is I was at the planning and zoning meeting, and I heard the residents that were there. There were additional ones other than these 2. And then even Miss Connie Washington, her letter is concerned. She said there's a lot of, I believe she said older women that live on that street, and they felt like they were in danger. On one of the applications, it says nothing about families with children. Connie said that she was under the impression that it was going to be individuals getting out of a hospital. Well, individuals getting out of a hospital and a family with children, it feels like is two totally different stories. I'm just really unclear at this point what exactly it's going to be used for. In addition to that, it says that a background check must be completed. However, what criteria, what offenses would disqualify an individual from living there? Because there's a huge plethora of offenses that could, some individuals don't want to live in a house with someone who has committed that kind of offense. So it's just really concerning for somebody who takes care of small children, in addition for families to be sharing rooms. I feel like that opens the door to some issues that I would not be comfortable with. I know that the Highlands County Housing Office, they offer rapid rehousing programs already. I know they offer foreclosure intervention programs, and they have ample funds available. So they are encouraging individuals. So anyone who is listening to this meeting, if they are in this situation, definitely please reach out to the Highlands County Housing Office. But as far as this particular place, I don't know, I just don't feel comfortable with it.
Sure. Okay.
That's sort of my comment too, that, yes, we had two people here tonight that didn't live on Washington Street. But we had two people who live on Washington Street, including what you said, but Miss Connie said it. She actually wrote us a little note or letter here talking about it, as well as the dealing with the fact she said to her that she had dealt with people that were convicts. And I think that the thing that bothers me the most is it seems like it was a process was trying to make this work in any way that you could. And it wasn't ever spelled out directly from the start what type of homeless coalition this was going to be for. All of a sudden, I heard it was this, I heard it was that, I heard it was this, I heard that. Now all of a sudden I hear it's for women only with children. So I'm not too sure that, that you're in a position to actually make this work exactly the way you presented here tonight. And I kind of wonder that I had to have a code enforcement come out after the fact and find out that there's problems out there and we've made a mistake. So I think that the land use code should stay the way it is.
Having said that, I'll make a motion that we deny resolution number 2022-01. Anyone care to make a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
No.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Item number 7, we have the FAM reference providing funds for the city's outside counsel to start the AIPP process. Mr. JT Clark?
Mayor, before we go further, can I bring something up on the last one?
Yes.
The city clerk, Bernice, did you fill out to abstain and not vote on this?
I did, I'm sorry. I forgot all about that.
So Jerry, how would you handle the needing to abstain?
What was the purpose of the abstention?
She's related to,
Oh,
Bobby Powell Smith is my cousin.
Sorry.
She also voted in that, so I would just say for future reference, you need to state that before the vote.
it's partially my fault too. She did provide this to me before the meeting.
you could renew the motion, and I would recommend you renew the motion and vote on it again.
Okay, so would you simply make a motion to renew the motion?
Yep.
I make a motion to renew the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, this is a motion to deny the resolution.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
I restain my vote
you have to say why you're abstaining.
because Dr. Bobby Paul Smith is my cousin.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you.
Make the motion again.
You gotta make a motion.
Yep.
Okay. So I make a motion to deny resolution 2022-01. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Same thing, you need to
You need to-
abstain.
you need to state the
Oh, we're
purpose.
doing it
uh,
again?
Yeah, state the conflict and then state your
I
abstention.
restain my vote. Dr. Bobby Paul Smith is my cousin.
thank you. Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes,
motion passes.
all right. Now for JT. Okay, is there anything else you guys need to clarify before he begins? Okay, all right. JT, take it away.
Good evening, council members, and city officials. Thanks for having us here today. We just wanted to discuss the opportunity to accelerate the AIPP application submittal, which must be done by the airport sponsor and not by the selected private operator.
Yes, sir.
As many, we submitted a kind of a Gantt chart that we put together back in February, March of this year, even for our kickoff call with Kevin Wells, Director of Policy for the FAA. And most of this application is completed. And so I'd asked a few weeks ago with the city team and council what it is that we can do to facilitate this process. And if it was money, how can we participate? So after meeting with our board, what we can do is provide a check for $20,000 today. I have brought a cashier's check with us. But we do have some conditions. I know that 40,000 was the requested retainer amount. If you can see on your Gantt chart, if it's in green, it's completed. Yellow is either substantially complete or we really just need your outside counsel's blessing. So other than formatting, we believe that our document is at least 85% complete, and it has been for some time. So we do accept the 40,000 if we need to, but 20,000 can be done today. Our request is that we have a final rough draft version by August 8th, and then a full final submittal by August 15th. So that gives us 14 business days to complete the remainder 15%-ish, which is probably not proper, my apologies. And then roughly 21 days for full final submittal.
Okay, so with that, it just raises the question of the actual application is going to be done by our outside counsel, right?
Correct.
And the outside counsel, have they heard the dates that JT had put forward?
No,
Okay. Did they provide us any idea as to how long this process would take? In other words, can they meet these requests?
no, they didn't. We planned on having a meeting with them this week because this just came up, as you know, as I brought up the last meeting, and outside counsel, I mean, when JT said he'd write the check, Dave Bernard said $40,000, pretty much be my word bare minimum. That'd be the lowest. And I know that they say they got most of it all complete, but it may not be to what outside counsel or Lowell believes is what we need to submit. Maybe, but they're the ones that are looking at it because they're submitting it on behalf of the city.
Right. So obviously, if our outside counsel agreed with what JT just said, then there's no conflict. But we need to hear from them if they can get it done in that time frame, if they agree that it's 85% complete, et cetera, right?
Correct.
So we don't have any way of doing that in this very moment, right?
No,
Is he on vacation? No?
he's going on it
Oh, okay.
in the next couple of weeks, but he said that the other attorney that helps him out would be there. And maybe JT, because I didn't write it down, but maybe JT with Jerry back and go through that again, what he's saying. Maybe Jerry's got this.
Sorry.
Okay.
JT, can you
If you
tell
don't
me
mind.
that time
Yeah.
frame again?
So, yes, Attorney Burt, one, we didn't imagine that the amount would be 40,000, given that substantial completion of the document is completed. But even if that is their figure, for what they believe needs to be done, we're willing to do 20,000 today. But we'll give the other 20,000 after submittal. But we request a final draft in 14 days, which would be August 8th, and a full submittal by August 15th.
Yeah, and if they don't get it within that period of time, you're not gonna pay the 20,000 or 40,000?
I mean, if unforeseen circumstances, right, we can all agree here that if things happen, well, what we don't want to see is another month and another month. go by.
I understand that, but I mean, this is basically all oral at this point. You could simply argue that at that point that, well, you didn't give it to us by that deadline, therefore we're not going to pay. Even though the work is all done and they're charging us, we still have to end up paying. I'm not saying no, I'm just simply saying, I'm making you aware of that particular circumstance. And then the other part you need to understand is there's nothing to enforce if, they don't pay the amount other than not go forward with any contracts. If that is a problem at that point, you have no bond or anything like that.
Sure.
But at that point, it's basically just trusting them.
Yeah.
But I'm most concerned about the fact that, that he's on vacation, and then I think that I thought I saw the email from the guy he was assigning it to, or assigning some of the work to. He's going to be on vacation as well, pretty much the same time, is he not?
I didn't see that one, but
Oh.
I haven't checked on my emails today.
Yeah, well, I may have misconstrued, because I was looking on my phone, so I might have got the two jumbled up. But we need to make sure that it can be done within that time period before we accept that, those terms. And then we need to have something in writing anyway with regard to having that done.
Just to remind the council too, basically we are, the city has taken the position that we are going to go through this AIPP process, but the FAA had offered us a grant. So we had applied for that grant that would help pay for this process. FAM is attempting to speed up the application part to get it forward. And in order to do that, the city was unwilling to expend our funds. They were willing to go ahead and prepay for that to get it done quicker. So that's the gist of what we're talking about. Now you guys have offered 20,000 today with the caveat that it has to be done within a certain time period.
That's correct. If I may too, it has been known to all parties that as long as we follow the exemptions for the Federal Register, that our goal here is to start to get a Federal Register notice issued and a docket number. And once that happens, then public comment period happens, review process happens. Even if the remaining technical items are not complete, much like a master plan getting funded, it does, just because they fund it today doesn't mean it is due today. So our goal is to assure our shareholders, our stakeholders, whether those are government entities or private entities, that the process is in fact moving forward.
Mhm.
So even if we submitted in 14 days from today, the earliest we could by statutory requirements per the Federal Register would be January 31st. And that's just if we submit in 14 days. So whether or not the statement of work that Low Clarity provided is accomplished by them or not, this process needs to get going, and the exemption should not be longer than a page, in our opinion. The first exemption is to notify what the last grants were that y'all done in the last 10 years, which those are easily identified. The second is for the current sponsor to be able to receive revenues legally outside the airport jurisdiction. And the third is for the private operator to be able to make a profit on that. So at the very least, and Kevin Willis, we were all on that call, said that we could move forward and even waive the pre-exemption to help us accelerate back in February, March. So we're not even required to fully submit the final application, which I'm in agreement with council and all parties that it should be the full application. That is why we, as the private entity, filled out. I mean, some of this stuff is name and address of sponsor. You can actually look here on the Gantt provided. Part 1A, what is the name of airport? What is the address of the public sponsor? What is the address of private operator? What is the airport property? We've done a lot of this work with title through our P3. So most of these due diligence items have been completed. We do have evidence of good title for the airport. We have identified terms of lease. We have identified financial terms of transaction. Transfer documentation is still highlighted yellow. We've even retained Greenberg Traurig to do our bankruptcy opinion, which is written on behalf of the city. That is completed. Understood. Again, the exemptions are very simple. Some of this is not even applicable because we're a rural airport in nature. So if we were an air carrier service that were required to be Part 139, this document would be much more lengthier. But we're of the opinion that the application should be less than, I think it'll be excessive even at 100 pages.
Mark, has Dave Bernard's basically said that he can get this done, or we have not talked to him about this additional?
No, actually, I was going to read off his
Okay.
email, but because he's going to be out, these timeframes are going to work with him. It says, heads up, I'm going to be out of the country on vacation from August 3rd to the 21st. Nick, that's the other attorney, young attorney in his firm, will be handling anything that comes up with this project, but we may be slightly delayed in some instances. If the decision is given to move forward, we will do so with appropriate speed. If that is council's decision, and then he says that it'd be great for you and I and Lowell and him to get together this week. And
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but if they're going to put that caveat on there that, well, we're not going to pay if it's not done within that time period, it can't be done within that time period, we obviously can't do that.
no, I agree. I disagree with that. Because they're out of town. Nothing, I mean, these guys, they know I want it as bad as they do, but if this AIPP process application so easy, we wouldn't be one of the first airports to do it, other than the couple who have tried it in that. So,
But not just that, if you submit, it may be that, they decide that it's not sufficient, and they send it back and say, well, you have to resubmit what these changes. That happens all the time, especially in federal submission. So would that then be deemed to be a non-submission within the time period, even if he does get it done within that time period, which he's obviously not? So these are all considerations we have to, take. And I'm just like you. I mean, I'd like to see this thing go and go as soon as possible. But if the council still feels like they don't want to pay for the attorney's fees, you are on you could be still stuck with the attorney's fees under this deal.
I have a question and a comment. It's more than one comment actually, but the first question I have for JT is this paperwork you send us out here with all these forms filled out. How long has the attorney and the consultant have had all that information?
I would say early March, and Lowell did review that already. He has done a precursory review, and I believe he only had 5 comments on the entire document.
Okay, so my feeling is this: I understand the date issue. I understand people on vacation, but I also understand this is always from day one. It's been a partnership, and I think that FAM has done their part of this partnership for more than a year now. And the fact that they're offering $20,000 upfront good faith money is a very good start. And I don't know why we can't turn around and ask the attorney to move forward with this as quickly as possible. I don't understand why the reasons are they need $40,000 up front if they haven't done anything. Don't you usually give somebody so much money, like a retainer type fee to get started, and then you pay them when they get finished? So to me, I think that they've met all the requirements on their part. I understand the part of the dates, and I understand we all want to get this done as quickly as possible. But I definitely think what is text that he got from the attorney about the fact that the city council wanted to move forward, I'm ready to say yes. Let's move forward. We got $20,000 here today is good faith money. You offer to give another $20,000 when it's done. To me, that's basically all we expect them to do.
Right.
I think they're doing their due diligence, and I think this council has done its due diligence too. And this is a partnership that we entered more than a year ago. And I'm ready to make a motion if everybody feels like it to move forward with that. Tell the attorney to move forward, and whether it's him or his assistant or whatever, to get this done as quick as possible. And I don't think that $20,000 is a reason to hold this thing up right now.
So a couple clarifications. They didn't ask for $40,000 up front to get started. They just said that it was probably going to cost $40,000 minimum. Okay. As far as it being up front, that was something that the city imposed because we don't want to move forward. They're not going to bill us $40,000 day one. They're going to bill us as they use the time. The city imposed that because we were basically saying, we don't want to pay for this until we get the grant. So in order for us to submit this before we get the grant, we would have to have that money from outside, i.e. FAM. That's where this whole $40,000 upfront situation comes from.
All right, let's not forget one thing though. The fact is how much money it's costing us to not to move forward with this. We're spending money every single month, whether it's paying FAM to manage it right now, whatever. We're still out there losing money at the airport. I don't think that they're offering $20,000. Why we can't tell them to get started? They offer 40,000 total when it's done, or whatever's needed. I just think that.
Yeah.
I think it's time to move forward.
But
I think it's time for the city council director to go forward and get this thing done as quickly and as timely as possible.
The prudent thing would be to ask the outside counsel, when can you get it done? Give us a time, give us it doesn't have to necessarily be a signed in blood guaranteed date, but geez, they need to tell us when they can realistically get it done. And then send that date to FAM.
So if I may, counsel, we were having weekly meetings, and when I brought this up nearly a month ago, the last 2 meetings have been canceled without notice with us and your selected council and party. So we could have discussed this prior to today's meeting, but I mean, there was just no call, no shows. Last week, I think we got about a 30-minute notice that this week was canceled, but our board had already decided to move forward. And so if they're canceling our weekly meetings for us to push this forward, and if they, listen, things happen in life and we're okay with it. And we understand the newness of all this, but really what this application is a job application, fill in the factual data that we have already determined well over a year and a half of negotiations for our public-private partnership. And the longer we delay, the credibility we lose from the FAA, because the FAA directly told me in Washington, D.C. to have it submitted in 2 weeks. And that is why we hustled to get it done, just so that they could review it. 1, so those fees were not imparted on the city. And 2, to just help do our part and lift that burden.
Is it not the FAA that's also offering us the grant?
Right. It's likely going to be in October before they'll do that, because
So why would the same organization that tells you 2 weeks also take forever to do the grant?
because one's policy and one's finance.
Gotcha.
So policy thought.
But
that
if
this
the
would be
same
two weeks.
organization is what's holding it up, wouldn't they also have an understanding that, hey, it's us that's holding these people up? They're not doing anything.
Well, I mean, I think that's debatable, Mayor, because even on the statement of work for the due diligence that remains, we do not believe that any of that needs to be done. We believe that the work has been done. The only outstanding item should be a second MAI appraisal, because that's required, because the value of the transaction is north of $1 million. So in our opinion, really, it would be whatever Lowe's fees are, whatever David Banner's fees are, and one more appraisal, which would satisfy all requirements for this application. And he has got a tremendous amount of other work, but hold on real quick, that may be satisfied, and I'm sorry, Santi, it may be satisfied by site certification process. So it may be taken over by events over the next quarter anyways, the outstanding deliverables. And I'm not saying that it's not a good practice. I'm not saying that we don't want everything here absolutely top notch. That's not what I'm saying.
But that last part that you said it may be overtaken by, what was that again?
Events.
Okay. What exactly do you mean by that?
Okay, so we are going through a Duke certification. This was going to be part of the city manager updates, but a lot of the outstanding elements will be paid by Duke.
I see.
In their process. So that process has already begun. They have a goal to finish that in 90 days. If we start the application, the universe might have all those outstanding deliverables done, except for outside counsel and low clearance fees.
I see.
Right? We as a private entity may decide to purchase another MAI appraisal or ask for an exemption because of the value of the transaction, which I do believe that we could argue the fact that 2 MAI appraisals aren't done. I think the challenge that we really have a hard time, that gives us heartburn here, is it is speculation between us as the private operator and speculation between outside counsel on what exactly needs to be done. And until an application is submitted and they identify and provide comments on any deficiencies, then we'll absolutely know.
I see what you're saying. You're proposing to submit it even if it's not 100%, because you know that they're going to tell us exactly what they want anyway.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay. I understand what you're saying.
And can I add to that?
Sure.
Outside counsel disagrees with doing that. He'd rather do it all up front, the best he can get it in, than have it kicked back, knowing it's probably going to get kicked back.
Right.
That's his legal expert opinion.
So JT, you mentioned those couple of dates there, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you get it submitted in the next 14 days, and that puts you at the end of January. So what happens if it's after those 14 days? Does it then go to another quarter or something, or?
Sure, go ahead. What we're asking, we've already done the application, and really I guess, I'm a professional. I do all my work to a professional standard of practice.
Understood.
Okay. So that document that we submitted to, and Lowell Clary has passed through, it came back with very little comment at the time. What we had was a lot of the financials that needed to be done from the city, the exemptions. Your side, and let's say the city side, was just basically sitting on their hands. We're not gonna touch this until we get the money from the FAA.
Mhm.
All of it, which is understandable, but they did create a large package of work that did not need to get done to actually complete this transaction, much less the application.
Mhm.
And so what we've seen is that you all pushed us into this AIPP program, your council, I apologize, because Kevin Willis from the FAA office had said, hey, this is the better way to go. I want you to do it this way. Okay, fine. But we've done nothing in that respect for 6 months now. And except that we, FAM ourselves, have already filled out a majority of that application, including now the financials and the exemptions.
Mhm.
All you all have to do is submit it. Now, I understand you have to go through some review, and we've written that in here. We understand that, it's reasonable. We do some red team review, some pink team review, and submit this document. But it's not rocket science. It is just a simple application. It's basically saying, what's your experience running airports? Well, we have Michael Powell. We have 25 years of Michael Powell's experience running airports.
Right.
That's how we answered all this application process. So think about going after a job. It's really that, just for an airport. And
Mhm.
so it's not complicated. It's done. So I get that we got to kind of cross the T's, dot the I's. We're already there. So
Sure.
what we're at, to answer your question, I apologize, is that as long as it's done in a reasonable amount of time, and we're not sitting here another 6 months waiting for you all to submit,
Mhm.
then that's what we consider. I mean, within a month, within 5 weeks,
Sure.
that's fine. But we're go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, so in response to City Manager Schrader's comment of getting it all in full, we agree. So, but the application does not require the statement of works that is being requested for that grant, for that 530,000. What, even in the pre-application, it is the parties to the transaction and the exemptions. At the very least, is what it needs to start our Federal Register in our public comment period, which, this goes to the USDA for their satisfaction. This goes to the state DEM for their satisfaction. There's a lot of parties that are waiting to see at least that portion. So I'm not, please, Mark and council, I'm not disagreeing with needs to be a full package and the work needs to be done. But per FAA's own guidelines, we passed that threshold months ago.
So it appears to me that the outside counsel that we have, they disagree in the fact that it needs to be 100% completed before they turn it in. Obviously, the reason why they would be saying that is to make sure that it gets approved, right? So they're trying to.
No, sir. So there's actually, 2 to 3 parts of this application.
Mhm.
Part 1 is parties to the transaction. Part 2 is the exemptions. That is all that they require in their own Federal Register. And I guess I should have brought it today. It's only about a 5-page, application process. To do the pre-application, which was waived, but at least that would start the timeline. Really, it doesn't go into any of the detail that is recommended for per low clarity scope statement of work.
Right. So basically, to recap, they have a way that they think it should be done, right? And you guys are saying that they're asking for too much. So if we said, you know what, JT, do whatever the heck you want, submit it however you want, right? And you guys submit it and it gets denied because of that, then where does that leave us?
So I don't think it'd be denied because of the requirements. All we're trying to do is follow the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
But I'm saying if it does.
Well,
If they said, we didn't like the way that JT personally filled this out, I'm just using it as an example,
Right.
but what I'm saying is if they said that, where does that leave us if this thing gets denied for some reason?
So then you get a 30-day window to resubmit.
I see.
So it's not you just stand up one time, and if there's something short, that you're absolutely denied. We have the opportunity to apply again and apply again and apply again if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the guidelines clearly listed out.
And in these reapplications, obviously they would give you a reason why you were denied.
Yes, sir.
And so if it wasn't something that was unchangeable, wasn't something that was absolutely core to the application itself, then that could be changed relatively cheaply.
we would correct that as a private operator.
I see.
It's okay if I speak to?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we don't disagree that it needs to be done perfect and right. That's how we work. That's
Right.
how I work, okay? And yes, there's gonna be things that the attorney might say they want to put into this, or Lowell Clary, and Lowell has made some comments, and he might find other things that we need to do, request for more information, et cetera. like that. So we want to submit this a one-time deal, ideally, and if it takes us a certain period of time, I'm just saying that, looking at it, from my professional opinion, it's ready to go. It just needs to be cross the Ts, dot the Is. Okay, now, they can come back with comment, but I don't think it's gonna take 6 months. This is not to be dragging this on for 6 months, submitting that application. So whether we just submit exemptions, or whether we just, or we submit the whole package, however y'all decide to do it, if it's gonna take a year, then let's just submit the exemptions to get the docket number going. And so, but at the end of the day, we want this to be a perfect product. We want it never to come back. If it does come back, looking at the Puerto Rico process, they'll come back for requests for more information.
Right.
And it would be, one question, one line item there, one question, they'd call something out, and then you just resubmit the package with that. And so,
For Mark or Jerry, who's ever can answer it, has the issue of just filling out the exemptions been raised to the outside counsel?
Yes,
And their response was,
they do. He and Lowell do not believe it's a good idea just to submit the exemptions. We should do it all at once. Plus, they believe the exemptions need to be tweaked, worked on and that. And I talked to JT and all of them. I mean, they agreed. They want to get this going. They want to get it done. So does Mark, so does Jerry.
Sure.
So does our outside counsel. I'm sure that this one, they like to chalk off and move on to something else as long as
Everybody
it's
does,
gone on. When they talk about the P3 and going to AIPP process, that was brought to council, and council made that decision, and that was at the suggestion of the FAA. And it's a benefit to FAM to get that, and the city, so they can apply for their own grants and they can manage their grants. We won't have to worry about that. So that is they know it is, but they're looking at other things. My suggestion is tomorrow morning, first thing, I'll get a hold of David and Jerry and Lowell and see when they're available to get together to see the timeline. I would assume that they can't meet this timeline that JP's put out, or JT's put out, because the main attorney overseeing this is going on vacation out of country. Like Deputy Mayor said, everybody's got a right to take a vacation, so I'm glad he's taking it. So we might not be able to make that, but they're not going to drag this out. He wants this done also. And it would have been done. It's just the funds. We're waiting on it now. JT or his board has decided to pay it, but I'm with Jerry to withhold funds. That doesn't mean the city's ever going to get it. And if they don't make whatever timeline we're giving them, and I'm not sure that outside counsel wants anybody to tell them you got a timeline to get this done. So that's my thought. Jerry might want to add something to it. I want it done too, but I think at this point, the directions really should be from you to reach out to them and see if they can do this in what their timely fashion is.
Jerry, before you speak, let me make one comment. The fact, like I say again, you said in the text, he said he was waiting for city council to give him direction to move forward as quickly as possible. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, no, he said there might be some delays here and there, but yes, we're, like I said, it's been brought up before. These guys are dragging their feet. No, they want this done. I think they want to walk away from this too, because it's dragged down for so long. So if you let us reach out to them, find out, what their time frame is, and we move forward. JT's board says pay at least 20,000. Well, we got 20,000 there, but I'm with Jerry. I'm not going to ask them or suggest they work past the $20,000 without the funds there to pay them.
I think Mark stated it perfectly.
yeah. Well, I mean, at the bare minimum, we need a response from the outside counsel. Plain and
Correct.
simple. And even at this point, even if you wrote them a check for $500,000, they can't get it done, but
That's
so
right.
fast. So we need them to tell us how fast they can get it done. All right.
Correct.
So I agree with Mark that that's the direction we should go, and we could take it up at our next meeting if we need to, if we get a response from them. But by all means, we need a response from them.
And one more thing, to be completely transparent with fam here, that you guys didn't do nothing wrong other than knock down the fence, but other than that, you're right. We actually, I've been talking to Bart, the manager up there, right? And he assured me that the AIP due diligence grant was sent up to DC and they're waiting on it. Well, we got an odd email today from Miguel, who is two beneath him, from a email that Melody had sent him over a month ago, right? 2 months ago, and he sent him back saying we still need stuff in it. So we haven't had a chance yet, I don't think she has, to get with him and say, what in the heck are you talking about? Your main boss said it's up there. So, with the FAA has been a real eye opener. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
That's pathetic. Got it. Okay, anything else to add?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, again, I guess Mark's alluding to bureaucracy being the issue. If we're waiting on starting, that's all we're asking. We're not asking you to finish. We're asking you all to start this process. And it's been 6 months and no, unless only from our side, has this been started.
Right,
And
but what did we just say, Cynthia? Even if we said go today, he's not going to do anything.
Well, can I add more of that? Be a little more transparent, bring it all out, which we all know. Right now, we're at $210,000 or 205, because we just got Lowell's bill from April, May, and June, right? It was 10,000. So FAM owes us half of that. So that's why City Council, rightfully so, I agree with them, didn't want to move forward with spending more money, because they've allotted over $200,000, 205 or whatever it is now, for this.
So, yeah, we'll have to reconcile those when we get to closing, but I think you'll find that it's not a check from the private operator of the city.
What was that?
I don't know. What did you mean by that?
If you're 50-50 and you guys are at 205, our council will exceed that.
Okay. Well, I'm just bringing it up so council needs to know everything that's going on. So, Mayor, I will reach out tomorrow first thing, trying to set up a meeting with outside counsel and Jerry and see what their time frame is.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I appreciate FAM's drive to get it done, and I understand. And they've been great guys to work with, and they're doing a good job out there. And they're going to stick by, because one of my managers up there, they got stuff about Duke, and they know more about it than I do.
So you got more of us in a few minutes.
Very good. Appreciate it. All right. Item number 8, we have the approval of utility loan agreements for 2307 Carpenter Road and 2158 Hartman Road.
So you have in your packet the deferred payment plan lien agreements for those two properties. The homeowners have submitted and staff has reviewed all documents related to this lien agreement. And they are both in the amount of $1,675. And it's our recommendation that you approve them.
I would agree. Do we have a motion? Make a motion to approve the utility loan agreements for 2307 Carpenter Road and 2158 Hartman Road. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
That's on the second address.
Okay.
Get to their payment plan. They're setting up for a 20-year payment plan. Is that going to be acceptable? I mean, I know they're paying 5% interest on it, but 20 years is a long time for other things to happen. And so the other party was paying, it's hard to go through all this real quickly, but they're paying, $30-some extra a month, 37 something. The other ones are only just paying a couple of dollars a month. So my question is it wise, even at a 5% interest, to give somebody 20 years? I think they said 240 months now, right? That, a lot can happen between now and then. It seems like a lengthy time and a low amount of extra money to pay to get to that total amount. I think we should make an adjustment on that.
Yeah, that's always been my opinion. And I think I've stated it before. It's if you're talking about a long, long time, for payback for, for a relatively small amount. But I leave that to you, as I did before.
Can we change it if our lease agreement already offers not more than 250 equal monthly payments?
Right,
We
it's
can
always
make it
been,
shorter or no?
it's always been subject to your discretion as to how long it is. It's my recollection of how we did that code. And I don't have it here in front of me, but my recollection is the code has always been subject to your discretion for a period of time.
Yeah.
Well, if you own a calculator, you will
They're
see.
actually talking about $7.36 extra a month for 240 months. And at 5.5% interest. I love the 5.5% interest, but that's, for me, I don't think we should go preferably more than 5 years, but definitely not more than 10 years. Especially at that amount, it's not kind of like just.
My question would be, why does the amount matter? What's the difference between $1 and $1 million? It's still the same. It's still the same percentage, and it's built off of percentages for that very reason. The whole idea is that you're not just doing one account. You would ideally do, hundreds or thousands of accounts. And if you do the math on it, that 5.5% interest they're gonna pay triple or more.
I think he's saying there's more of a chance for them to skip out on us. Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, it's.
Is it not held against the property itself?
It is.
Right, next one up, pay, and since I got here before it was rewritten, it was at 240, 20 years. But there are people that come in and pay it off sooner when they come across some money or whatever, and they actually come in and pay it. But like the mayor said, we're making more money the city is, but like Jerry said, if we want to change it, then I think there needs to be a change in an ordinance to change that so that we know what to go by.
Right. So is it set up in such a way that if they sell their home, that it gets paid off before they vacate the property, or does it go with the property, or how does that work?
I believe it goes with the property, so there's a lien on the property. If they don't pay it, then the next homeowner would be responsible to pay it.
So at the closing, it'll be decided. They'll either assume the lien, or they'll, as part of the deal, or they'll require that they pay it off as part of the purchase price.
Is it up to us to stipulate that in any way?
You could stipulate that it can't be transferred, it can't be assigned.
Or that it has to be paid off at the time of transferring?
Yeah, you could so stipulate, but you'd have to change the ordinance for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense to me. In the scope of a home, most people aren't going to keep their home 25 years. Typically, people don't see their actual mortgage all the way through. You're going to sell your house and move before you go. With a business, you almost always will not see it through. Businesses tend to come and go far faster than homes even do. So the stipulation that it has to be paid off before it transfers, I think makes a lot of sense. But as far as the amount of money that the city is returning on investment with that 5.5% over that length of time, you can't argue that we're tripling the amount of income. So if the city is not in a dire strait for the funds now, you're putting yourself in a better position in the future. It's more like an investment, really. Just my opinion. But in either regard, we don't really fund a whole lot of projects, and this really wouldn't amount to a whole lot unless we were seeing a huge amount of development with some large developers. But even if we had 1,000 homes, you're not talking about a huge amount of money here, so it really doesn't matter either way. It is a benefit to the homeowner or the business owner that they get to spread it out over such a length of time to help them with their capacity fees and all that. So there's a benefit there, but obviously it's up to us, as they said.
I'd like to hear Jerry's comment once again, explain exactly why you think it should be less.
My feeling about it was that, just from when being in utility business, that it's just a very long time, and to have a small amount of money like that, on a loan. And if somebody is buying a house, then, my feeling was that, it's talking about $1,400 over 20, or $1,600 over 20 years. It's just, that's less than a car payment. I mean, it's less than a car cost. They only go for up to 6 years. Good credit. So, and that was just my opinion, was that, it was a long time.
Anyone wish to change anything?
Just the fact that the attorney said about having to make sure that it doesn't go over to the next owner.
If you want to change that in the future or before this one, then I can make that change. But yeah,
It couldn't be done right now.
I couldn't do it right now.
It's, these two are irrelevant, so whether you change it now or change it in the future, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense to hold these two up that isn't gonna amount to anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not going to break the city one way or the other.
Right.
Actually, there was recently a closing on a house, because now I remember I got a call from, I think the realtor wanted to know how much was owed on that, because they were gonna pay it off at the closing. So,
Right.
Right. It's generally how it's done.
Yeah. No, regardless, we should do that moving forward. So, I mean, if council, if nobody's opposed to it, we can go ahead and instruct the city attorney to write something up to change that in the future.
Yes.
Everybody agree? Nobody opposed? Okay. So, and then as far as these two now, can we go ahead and approve these now and then do that in the future, so we're not holding anybody up?
I make a motion to approve item D8 for both residences.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 9, we have a discussion with possible decision to sell through a bid, city-owned vacant property.
Okay, just reading off the background I put in there, so hopefully all of you understood it. A local businessman has approached the city, inquired if city council would be interested in selling the above noted vacant property. It's at 2925. It's got a US 27 address, but it's really on Davis Citrus. The property was purchased by the city in 2016 for $275,000. There's a wastewater effluent line running through the property on the northernmost part of it, to which an easement would need to be granted for that. And Jerry, I did find it in our
Yeah, I saw it.
codes.
When I saw the agenda, I found it as well.
Sometimes in our codes, it's hard to find things, and in there it tells, it's got to go out to bid. We can get an appraisal, we don't, but first we got to know if you are interested in selling that. And Rick is here to talk more about why he believes this property was bought and what it was used for.
Rick, go ahead.
I believe back when they purchased the property, they were looking at going around the lake, and I believe they ran into trouble with too much water infiltration. So they moved down where they could come straight down the highway, cut straight over, straight in. I believe it was required one directional, and I believe it came out a lot cheaper in the long run, even purchasing the property the way they had originally thought of doing it.
How
So they
big is
purchased
the,
the property.
how big is the main?
It's a 12-inch.
12-inch?
And it's effluent. It goes to our ponds.
Okay.
And you had Polston look at that too?
So
The
So-
Poston gave me a map.
if you had to work on that, replace it or repair it, and would you need a track hoe for that, or okay, so you're talking about a 20-foot easement then for a track hoe.
Yes. We would require a survey because there's no survey pins right out there right now to be able to tell exactly where the property, that's the problem. The trees are starting to grow back in. So we would have to have a survey to figure out where the edge of the property is and where our line is at, to know where we would have to have, whether it would be 20 or 40, depending on how far off the property line it is set currently.
Well, whenever, if they decide to go ahead and sell the property, that could be included either in the contract that they pay for it, or in the price, so that it's paid for through the price. But
Sure.
yeah, I think, I just wanted to see if, the size of the easement will make a difference with regard to somebody purchasing it. Because if I were purchasing it as a 10-foot easement, I'd have a whole lot less, impact than if I got to allow a 20-foot easement on there.
Correct. And if we just had that one side survey, we could pull a line out. And tell pretty
Yeah.
soon.
So the difference is, if you have a small line, it doesn't require heavy equipment to repair or replace, but the track hoe is is the one with, it looks like a tank, basically, really, really wide. So 20-foot easements, as little as you can get with that.
More like a 25.
20,
You gotta be able to drive down the side, drive up, start
So-
digging on, so you gotta have room.
you're gonna need a 25-foot easement. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
So obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of information as to why we actually bought the property other than to put that one line in. There was no other stated reason or anything, and the administration at the time wasn't exactly forthcoming with what their future plans were anyway, so.
Well, and that small parcel in front of it on 27 purchased too, and the line runs through that.
Right.
And as those who don't know, it's all wooded right now.
Right.
So if you decide that you want to do it, the motion would be basically to follow, you're going to follow the code. So you're going to be advertising and, you have to go out for bid. You can't just sell to this person.
Right.
And, which is what I recalled from our conversation.
You did.
And then there, if it's commercial, considered to be commercial lot, then there's a separate section there with regard to some of the limitations there as well. So, which might create a problem for sale. But that's basically it. If you decide you want to go that route.
Yeah, so just my 2 cents, any city-owned property that you have, obviously you need to identify a reason of why do you have it? Why might you need it in the future? That sort of thing. If there's no public need or utilities need that you can identify, then I think that it should be presented as to what would it be used for and what is the benefit to the citizens as a whole, right? Would it be better left as a vacant lot versus whatever is proposed to be built there? So go ahead. The complication here is that it has to be, sold in a public way and for, a bid process. So even if someone comes through and says, I want to build Walt Disney World in 11 acres, that doesn't really mean a whole lot because it has to be some type of a bid. So it's a difficult thing. It's the same thing that we ran into with the brick. So you want to have leeway into what it is and what it's going to be, something that it's a benefit, but at the same time, because it's a public bid type process, you really don't have a whole lot to say. It gets very complicated and it really shies away a lot of other bidders, from taking part in things like that.
And they're gonna have to build around the 25-foot easement as well. Unless it's on the edge of the property or somewhere.
It runs east and west, and it's on the very north end of it. So that's what I'm saying. Hopefully it won't be a large chunk. It could
Yeah.
be 25 foot just straight across it.
Okay, so it'd basically be in the setbacks probably.
Right. It's not set in the middle of it, from what it looks like. It's
Okay.
set to the far north end of it.
Right. And the only other comment is we obviously purchased that property that it abuts on the other side of the road for those ponds that we have out there.
Right. And we currently have 2 ponds now, and we have room for 2 more ponds. We probably have enough with the additional 2 to get to a 5 MGD. So,
Okay, so the question is, do we need larger than a 12-inch pipe to fill those 4 potential ponds?
if we did with a 25-foot easement, there would be plenty of room to put a second pipe or a third pipe in.
Got it. Okay. And you can't foresee any issue with any kind of like drainage water or anything like that we would ever need this for?
No, not because of not where it's at.
The easement wouldn't be a problem unless you tried to put in a potable water line, in which case there's a separation issue that would make it then, that much wider. You have to have the 10-foot separation between the 2 pipes. But if
Right.
you're just putting in another easement or another effluent line, and I believe drainage would be the same circumstances, since it's not potable. I don't think there's a separation, but I'm not absolutely sure about that.
I think with a 25-foot easement, we won't have an issue.
Yeah.
If we had to run a second line of a different nature.
So you've heard it from the utilities specialist here that we don't really have an identified use for it. So the question becomes, does the council want to look at selling a property or not?
Well, if we don't have a use for it, then I'm definitely up for selling it at a fair market value. But
And a fair market value would be established by a
appraisal when protected under chapter, under 119 is an exception.
And obviously, you know, an appraisal would have to be done beforehand.
Yeah, and in other words, you wouldn't publish that, but you would keep it in mind with regard to rejecting all bids if they don't get anything that size.
So now you're looking at basically spending the upfront cash of getting a
That's right.
appraisal and minimal attorney fees, things like that.
No, I don't think there's gonna be much until the deal is done. I see. So, because they'll put together the bid package here, unless they want me to do that. But, you know, other than that, once the sale goes in, then of course, probably Bernice Sachs would handle it because she's our property person. Different.
We can put the bid together and just run it by you. I'm sure it's good.
Okay.
So that's the process. What does the council want to do with it?
Well, it wouldn't cost more than $1,000 for appraisal, would it?
I bet it would.
Yeah, I think for commercial property, yeah. You know, and as for commercial property, there's a restriction here under 2-328, which I've never have liked, quite frankly. I should look at that, but it's basically, I mean, just A says the purchaser of commercial lots or sites must use the purchased property for the commercial purposes specified within 1 year of the date of purchase. Failure to establish such a commercial enterprise within 1 year of the date of purchase will constitute a breach of covenant and cause the lots to site to revert to the city. I mean, this really is designed for, you know, economic development, basically, as opposed to just trying to, you know, lighten your load with regard to property you don't need. So, but it is there, so you have to follow it unless you make changes to it.
Is that our code?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, the code section, if he wants to look at it, it's 2-328.
Okay. Okay, well, we can make a motion to go forward. We can table it. We can do all kinds of things. What does the council want to do?
Well, this may be a back way of looking at it, but we could ask the person of interest what price range you'd be looking at for the property, and then if it's somewhat agreeable, then we could go out and get our own appraisal.
I'm pretty sure that any savvy business person would probably have an idea of what the market value of the property would be.
That's exactly my opinion.
So yeah, I think you're on the right track of it. If you ask them, you know, hey, we're going to sell it, but it's going to have to be for market value. Are you willing to do that? If they say absolutely, guns a-blazing, let's go, then yeah, you maybe have something that we should work with. If they shy away from it or looking for, you know, a donated property, then that kind of tells you.
Well, then why don't we table it to that point?
We would have to instruct the city manager to ask such a question, right?
Yeah, if I mean, feel that's proper, seeing we're gonna put it out for bid, but
Okay. So obviously the council's intent is that we would need a survey for fair market value. And so we're just simply asking you to ask the applicant if they're willing to pay such a price.
okay.
Everybody good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, moving on to item number 10. We have the approved purchase of heavy equipment for running new water lines. Rick?
Okay, this is what we brought up, I guess, about a year ago. We brought up about out on the lakes, starting to run new water lines, and we needed equipment for that. So this is the equipment that it would require to start with laying the pipe out in the lakes.
Okay.
Which is consistent of a skid steer and a track hoe.
Okay.
Why do we run water and sewer lines? Why do we do that? The reason I ask is, generally speaking, utility process is somebody requests, you know, connection, and then they run the lines, and we might give a reimbursement agreement with regard to that or something like that. It's if you decide you want to do that, then as I recommended before, you should have a main extension fee. that, reimburses you for the cost of doing that. Otherwise, the cost is spread among all your ratepayers. And ultimately, if that's not done and paid for by bonds that are paid out of your water and sewer, then it's paid for by your taxpayers, some of which may not even have water and sewer.
Yeah, so how we got to this point was a year or two ago with the previous council. There was quite a few homeowners who was requesting water out in the Avon Park Lakes area as well as a few other areas. That council wanted to designate X amount of dollars. I believe it was $700,000 to running new water lines. The administration said we need 3 new employees. So they set aside $700,000. Then it was ultimately decided that, well, we can't just run water lines willy-nilly anywhere we want to go. We need to have a master plan done. So we eventually we're fortunate enough to get some grant dollars and we got a master plan funded. That master plan is almost done, but here we are at this point.
Well, that's just my opinion, is that you should have a main extension fee. You're going to run lines, and in cases of lines where it's necessary, you can do a tax assessment for those areas. That happens fairly frequently.
Whenever you say a main extension fee, how does that look exactly?
A main extension fee is basically if your project costs $1 million and you've got, well, I'm not going to do the math, but you're basically splitting the cost among all the people that are using the main, and based on hydraulic shares. And
So even if they're existing homes, which is kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other way of doing it is by assessment. If you have existing homes and property, then you assess all the properties that it passes by based on it.
And those assessment would have to be for inside the city of Avon Park, or could it be outside?
Yeah, I'm not sure about outside, although Chapter 180 does provide for you to serve outside, so it may be included in that, but I don't, just sitting here.
Well, that would be an important distinction because 99.9% of the properties we're talking about are outside the city limits. Correct?
Well, now I'd simply say that's just all the more reason to rethink that sort of thing, because not only are you running a pipe and costing $700,000, but you're not getting a dime in tax payment. You'll get a 15% or excuse me, 25% surcharge on top of that, but that won't ever pay for those pipes.
Sure. It was going to be my recommendation that we just simply table this item until our budget is more finalized, to see at what level we want to run and see if the staff still needs this equipment for that level. So that would be in the next, couple of meetings. We should have that figured out.
I agree.
Okay. Anybody opposed to that? Seeing none, I would just also ask Jerry to look for sure if we can have a assessment outside of the city or not. Okay. Moving on to item number 11, we have the approve Ascent Aviation Group invoice for aviation fuel.
Yes, so you have before you an invoice in the amount of $47,807.50 for avgas that was purchased from Ascent Aviation Group. It is above the city manager's threshold, so requires council approval.
Okay. This is fuel that's already been purchased, right?
Correct. Delivered.
Okay. All right. Any questions on that?
Have we seen an increase in have to purchase more fuel for the airport than average?
The price per gallon is more. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. I don't know.
Okay.
FAM may be able to answer that question if they've seen an increase.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Straight to the point. Appreciate it.
Me too.
All right. Anyone care to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve item number 11 for the invoice of $47,807.50.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item number 12, we have the code enforcement stats. Randy?
Yeah, I believe everybody's got a copy of them. They're pretty self-explanatory. Just to correlate where we are this year as opposed to 2021. Currently, this was 6 months, the 778. We're currently at almost 130 cases this month. So it brings you up a little over 905 with 4 more working days left. So that puts us roughly, like I said, around 905. Last year, we were totally combined at 1158. So we've almost, we're a couple hundred short of where we were for the entire year last year. So we're up about 30% productivity. So you can manipulate those numbers anyway. Hey, great, they're out there working, or geez, the city's in that bad a shape that.
Now, does the same property get dinged more than once? In other words, do you go out for the initial and then you go back? Is that same property in here several times, or is this
These are all separate properties.
one number one property?
Yeah, and multiple violations per case. So it's not just, these aren't violations, these are actual
Got it.
cases. So
Nice.
we're on track to go around 1,500 this year with about a 30% increase if we stay the course as we are now. We've started picking up tires for solid waste. I'm the one that does that. I don't want to task the other two with having to do that because that takes them away from their extra code enforcement. We've picked up 57 tires so far, and then we transfer that information over to solid waste. And then they, as you guys just passed that new ordinance, they keep track of, I try to put the tires with the residents so they don't get more than they're allotted in the early time.
Okay.
And that's about it. I mean, we're picking up, I know this stuff isn't exciting, but we picked up another 60. We're almost at where we were last year with snipe signs, almost over 700. And it doesn't sound like, well, it does sound like a lot considering we're only in July, but if we don't do that, those signs are going to be sitting there. People don't pick those up.
It's an election year, so I'm sure that number,
It's
whatever
going
it
to
is,
go way
it will
up.
double just in November alone.
Yeah. So very pleased with what's going on. Again, whether you see it or not, I guess you're not going to see all these, but I've got hundreds of case files. You can go look at the before and after pictures.
Yeah.
To prove there is a difference being made. But
I've definitely seen an improvement. You can see quite a bit. I've seen an improvement just from the amount of people that call me belly aching of getting a code enforcement violation. So, that obviously means something, but I think you guys have a long ways to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But just the fact that we are making progress, I think for a long time, we weren't making any progress at all. So glad to see that you are making progress, and I haven't heard anything negative out of the staff. So you must have a decent crew working with you now.
Very good crew.
So
Are you short any staff at all? Or?
No, sir, we're full. We have 2 officers, 1 support staff, and myself.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
And to add to that, Randy, the other day I got stopped by a resident. She's probably late 70s, said she lived there her whole life. She has never seen the city pick up grocery carts, and she's thanking you for picking them all up because they used to lay everywhere. So
Yep.
just little things like that.
Keep it up.
So keep it up.
Appreciate it.
Will.
Anything else for code enforcement report?
Good job.
Seeing none. Any attorney updates? City manager report.
Well, fam, I covered it because they're here with their ties. Well, one of them doesn't have a tie. Looking sharp anyways. Couple things with Duke Energy, and I got them. I told them stay here because Rick knows I still scratch my head over this. Thought they were the same thing. They both came at the same time, but I passed one on to Jerry. Duke is looking to use our airport as a staging operations for when hurricanes come through and all the power go down, and FAM's been working with them. We have an agreement. I passed off to Jerry. He's added some things, but we're on hold to find out exactly what they were staging out there and that. But we got with them today and know, so Rick will pass that on to Jerry probably tomorrow if he's available on what else we may need in there. The second one, I had received an email from Nancy Dodd from Duke, and said she was excited to share with us that the City of Avon Park Executive Airport been choosing to be part of the Duke Energy Site Readiness Program. They're working with the airport. That'd be FAM. Big smiles back there. And the Highlands County Economic Development, Jeff King down there. And she said the best part of it won't cost us anything. And FAM, if you'd like to handle both of those, just tell council a little about what they're about.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, esteemed members of the council, good evening. My name is Michael Powell, and I'm Chief Operations Officer for Florida Airport Management. One of the first things we did when we got here is start looking to see how we could partner and strengthen relationships that best serve the good folks in the great city of Avon Park. Just as Mr. Schrader had admitted, that we started talking quite frequently with Mr. Jeff King, and we found some partnership opportunities working with Duke Energy. And several of my other airports, I used to have one of the largest staging areas in the state for FPL that worked very, very well. They averaged over 1,500 vehicles, and they were able to get out and restore power to the folks in the surrounding communities very, very quickly. On average, they would get their power restored, so I was told 4 to 5 days sooner than if they located in that staging area. So we're happy for that opportunity, and who knows where that can go, because I'm also talking with those folks on their dime. They could look to possibly put solar panels out of the power, so we could further go clean and green, get our power for free. They still have access to put back on the grid, so it makes everyone happy. Put power lines underground as we continue to have larger development out there, high profile packages coming in to fly out. So it all works together very well with our plan in growing that facility. And the next thing that we are working on is the initiative to have a site certification process. These folks come in, and that's what Mr. Clark was alluding to, where they will actually pay for at least a few of the items that were identified in the AIPP application. It will, again, will not cost the city or us anything. And they're also going to go through, and basically we'll be able to use as a marketing tool any large corporations that want to come in the areas that are identified. They know that the energy company is already certified that, yes, if these guys need 3-phase power or whatever it is they need, they're going to work with those folks to develop that property and expedite those people, getting up and running. They look to move at the speed of business, not the speed of government. So all the partnerships that we're creating and facilitating are help to do the best we can for the good folks from the great city of Avon Park.
Love it.
I like it. Yeah, it's great news.
Appreciate the update. Appreciate your hard work in getting it done. I read over most of those briefs that we gotten from Jeff. Reach out to him pretty often, so appreciate your work on that. And I think we all look forward to getting our power turned back on 4 to 5 days sooner. So, anything else on the city manager update?
JT, you got some?
Just one more.
Okay.
So last year we presented an MOU, and this has to do with LSA's logistical staging areas. The state DEM would also like to have the same permission granted. I re-forwarded that from October 21st last year. I think this is a good time to get that executed. It's really the same contract that we would execute with Duke, except for this is the state for them to assign. But I mean, they could set up cafeterias out for folks, additional, power companies. Really, I mean, they build a city overnight, but they need access to the site. They'll work and coordinate with us. And this will dovetail well with our full-time SLRC center bid, which we hope to do soon, but I've been told that 110 millions in appropriations will have to go to House committee to appropriate into 3 different centers. But this is step 1 of the domino that would help support our business plan, objectives that we mentioned to you guys since day 1.
Okay. Very good. Any questions on any of that?
Nope, anything for the benefit of the city, I'm for it.
Okay. Anything else to add, Mark?
No, that's it, Mayor.
Well, thanks very much to everyone. Thanks for all your time. Thanks, JT. Santiago, everyone. Anything else?
If everyone's so inclined, I was just going to update you on your annual safety certification inspection that you had out at the airport last week.
Yes, sir.
FDOT comes out. FDOT, the state folks inspect smaller airports for the FAA. And I'm pleased to report that that gentleman was flabbergasted in what FAM was able to accomplish out there in the last 90 days. There was quite a bit that needed attention, and we were able to handle the most of it. But the main thing was to show those folks we did the majority of the work that they had strong concerns about on our own, which gives us a higher priority to further facilitate bringing grant dollars forward so we can fix all the deficiencies out there. They still identified several deficiencies, but they're things that they identified for the last several years, things that are outside of our scope and ability. But we do have grant dollars, grants, scope of services, everything for everything that is a deficiency out there to be corrected. We just need now the funding people to say okay and further accelerate bringing those grants forward. So we're going to work on that, and you probably won't be able to recognize the airport by next year. But I did think it pertinent to thank Mr. Rick Reed. All of his staff has been exceptional. Anytime we need anything, it's a partnership. Those gentlemen that come out there. I know a couple of times he himself had jumped on John Deere with the Batwing, helping us get the airfield ready. So many thanks to him, David, Mike Stone, Graham, all the folks that come out there on a regular basis and help us get it done. So you have an exceptional city staff. So thank you for that.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. That concludes our regular agenda. Is there anything else we good to the city? Seeing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.
Thank you.